Hello everyone, thank you again for the organization. I think it's very important for us to be here sharing, learning, and maybe in the future organizing together. And just that we don't want to go out for a break is very, I don't know, it gives some hope. And we are from Portugal, from a group that is reconstructing. We are reconstructing ourselves in this moment for a collective to the right of housing and to the city. Before we have experience of working with migrants in informal settlements, not settlements, but very old neighborhoods, informal neighborhoods, and we were struggling for the housing right with these communities because they were the more vulnerable in the society and they were not having access to housing. But now we see that the society is changing very fast and we feel the need to be larger in our actuation, and now there is the problem like Spain, like our companion from Spain, he said that we are looking to Spain and we are learning what is coming and it is happening already. I'm just going to put here, I think there is, this is, here is, I'm just going to put these images because it's a little bit what was our struggle, and we cannot put this bigger, but you can see images of what is happening in Portugal in this right moment and this kind of struggle that we are having. But first I would like to say this. It's not enough to lose a house to start struggling. It's very important that people that lose the house is aware of that injustice, and they have to have hope of changing something. And I think these two ingredients are very important for the struggle process, is the awareness of the injustice and the hope of changing something. And that's why I think when the companion from PA, when he finishes with that victory, it's very important to celebrate our victories too, because that moralizes people to have the hope to change something. And sometimes we don't do nothing because people lost the hope for that. I would like to, I don't want to repeat the reality from Spain, so I'm going to try, but it's very similar what happened in Spain and what is happening in Portugal. The kind of society and economy that developed since the 80s. Our housing was not inside the welfare state, the housing right was not taken by the welfare state, so the way that people started to access to housing was with the access to credit. And the government and the politics, they really promoted people to go to the bank to have a house. There was a slogan, if you want a house, go to the bank. And there was direct subsidies to these loans, direct subsidies and indirect subsidies, and also they were giving more and more facilities to have access to the credit. But at the same time that the access to the credit was more and more easy, the price of the house in these last 30 years went like this. So what happened is all this benefit with access to credit that gives us the illusion that we have access to house because we have access to credit, all this profit goes to the real estate business and to the banks because it doesn't revert to the families. And people and we all in society, we were not aware of that. And so now the composition of housing market in Portugal is almost 76% of people are owners of their own house, and they are not real owners because they have a debt of 40 years or 50 years to the bank. We have a very small renting market that was even symbolically, it was very diminished. So it's not people who succeed buys a house, they don't rent a house. It was even symbolically was not, just 3 point something is social housing, so it's very few. And these came, these years, these 2 or 3 decades, what promoted was a huge transference of capital from the economy to real estate business and banks. And all our economy started to work based on construction, banks and politics. And all these three together is a triangle that dominates our politics and economy. And just a word about the soil speculation and corruption that we have is that because of the expectation of the housing prices are so big, were before the crisis, were so big, what happened is that they started to do agricultural land. They pick agricultural land, they buy. When I say buy, they is these corrupt people. They buy agricultural land after they go to the municipality with a very easy process, political and administrative process. They pass this agricultural land to urban land, and in 1 week, this land that was bought by 20,000 in 1 week is going to cost 2 million. And this is a machine of making money. And this was the party all over Portugal with the destruction of the territory, with the destruction of very good agricultural land, and with all this speculation process, because it starts in the soil and after goes on and on until the families that are paying the house. Now with the crisis, what is happening is that people started to lose the houses. And banks, people are losing the house to the banks. It's not a process that is so brutal like in Spain, because the banks are a little bit afraid of receiving so many houses at the same time. They pretend that we don't have a bubble, so they don't want to receive all. So it's a little bit arbitrary. It depends if this place is interesting to keep these houses because it's a nice place where we can make other kinds of speculation, other areas are not so touched. Also, we have that if the people give back the house, they don't get rid of the debt necessary. It depends. And a lot of times they don't get rid of the debt. With the renting market, and this I want to now with the Troika, when Troika entered Portugal, the memorandum of Troika has one specific point, that it has 6 points, our memorandum. And one of the points is that they obliged to the total liberalization of the renting market. What is happening now, and is really the state of terror that started this year, is that these old people that my Portuguese colleague in the morning talked, these ladies that have old people with 300 euros per month pension, they are receiving letters at home now of because this market was controlled. It was not social market, but it was renting market that had some kind of limits. And now the Troika imposed the total liberalization of the renting market, and this is attack to the elderly people, people of 60 years old, 65, 70 years old, that are receiving letters with big rise of their rents. Also, in social housing, people are getting evicted by the municipalities, because the law in social housing is very unfair, and the way that calculates what people are going to pay is unfair, and we have also eviction in social housing, and we still have demolition in informal settlements. Also, we are a country of 4 million families, 4.5 million families, and we have almost 1 million empty houses in Portugal, and a lot of them belongs to real estate funds and banks, and they don't even pay taxes. They are free from taxes, and these houses are empty. And well, what we are doing as a collective that is trying to promote a struggle in Portugal, first is that we see that the people that is leaving the eviction, they are very lonely. They leave this with shame and as a personal failure. So we are trying to transform this into a collective problem and a collective process of struggle. We have to demystify some myths of liberal market and all this liberal that if we have a lot of housings, the price of houses go down. This is not true, and the reality proves is not true. We are trying to make connections with other groups because we think that we have, in Portugal we are not so many struggling, so we have to connect with the universities, with the precarious movements, with the unions, with different, because this is transversal to the society. And also we have to start pointing to the empty houses, because I think is there where is the solution for this problem. And now I'm going to pass to my colleague that is going to speak about the specific struggle that we have in one of these neighborhoods.
Hi. So there is well, we have a stock background, and but this is the background we have in our action in HABITA. It's a self-constructed or informal neighborhoods that surged until the 70s by constructed by people coming from the country to the cities, and after the independence in '74 by people coming from the Portuguese language countries. In '93 there was a PAIR. It was a special program for rehousing for these neighborhoods. So people were registered at that time, people who were living there, but it was supposed to be executed or applied in 4 or 5 years, and the result was that nowadays we still have 1/3 of these persons that are waiting to be rehoused. During that, what happened also is that part of these neighborhoods were occupied by persons that had difficulties to find house. Also, there were arbitrary exclusions of the initially registered persons, and it was always characterized by the lack of participation of the communities. In 2007, another program surged. It was Pro-HABITA. It was for the victims of the demolitions, so people who were not impaired in the '93 program, but then in 2007 who were victims of these demolitions, who didn't have the right of being rehoused. But this program didn't work also because there's a lack of coordination between the three entities, the social security, the municipalities, and the housing institution of the government. And it's also now, actually in 2012, 2013, the national budget didn't predict zero, so it predicted €0 for this case. So this is one of the arguments why the municipalities, they are, a municipality is invoking. Actually this last summer, so our group reactivated again because in Amadora it's a municipality 15 kilometers from Lisbon, and it's the most dense populated region in Portugal. Is started to evict a neighborhood which his name is Bairro Santa Filomena. What happens is that there's 400 families living there. Only 300 are protected under the PAIR, let's say, and there's another 100 families with around 3-4 persons that are not protected. So they start to receive notifications in June to leave the houses in brief days. So immediately then we managed to organize and to go to courts to ask for the suspension of these acts. Well, it was not enough. Sometimes we were succeeded, sometimes not, and we started to face authentic, sometimes dramas, with people suddenly becoming homeless or going to live in a car, or a whole family who is going to live also in the living room of a friend. There is, of course, in the back of this activity of the municipality, of the people who have, let's say, the power, the interests of construction. And for instance, you can see all around this neighborhood already an urbanization with streets, with palm trees around, with rounds, so there's a special segregation that is pushing the population out of the limits of the municipality. That's also an attitude we have felt in previous years. And it is also made through a criminalization or marginalization that is being sticked of the authorities to these persons, also to these communities. So these persons, of course, there are lots of them. They were workers coming to Portugal. They helped to build Portugal in the 80s, 90s, in the construction, women working in the services, in cleanings, in houses, maids. And nowadays, with the crisis, these areas are really dumping, and so they have lots of them are jobless. And so they don't have the possibility, even if the municipality what offers in exchange is 1 or 2 months of rent. They don't have. If they go to an owner, the owner never wants to celebrate a contract because they don't have any guarantee due to their economic situation. So often these people have health, age, or minor child. So health and age, health problems also, yes. So what happens is what we can see is normally tens of policemen that arrive in the morning, and the evictions are characterized with police violence. The goods are taken by the municipality, the authorities, other authorities like the embassy and government of Cape Verde, because mainly of most of the persons of this neighborhood, they are originally from Cape Verde. The second and third generation is already born in Portugal. They claim sovereignty limits to act. The High Commission for Immigration and Cultural Diversity never had an effective action about it. What we seek to do is in HABITA, we try to support the inhabitants with this that have no alternative on housing through the court, as we say, and also through supporting the creation of a communitary process to search for solutions. We also try to sensibilize other persons because there's also through media we don't have really a good help. So we search to sensibilize in social cultural associations in the surrounds, or social centers also. And what is requested normally is the suspension of the demolitions and to reanalyze the economic situation of these persons. As a result of the behavior of the authorities, there is an increase of urban poverty as a lack of social cohesion, and this is our defy.